This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 166. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On today's episode, we have an award show for wrestling. We've got the lowdown on that, as well as what might be happening with Matt Riddle and what might explain what's actually taking place on Monday Night Raw with him, as well as the potential dollar amounts that Lana and Mandy Rose are losing out on because of WWE's ban on this, as well as the one-time Stone Cold Steve Austin threw a haymaker at Booker T. Of course, we're going to take a look at what's going on with the world of wrestling, with the biggest topics and trends, and doing it with me, as always, he's the one, he's the only, he's my co-host, he's your co-host, he's my cousin, he's the only guy I know who likes to get his fortune read by a coffee cup. Yeah, you heard me, a coffee cup. And his mom does it. It's like he's a gypsy, but he's not. He's the one, he's the only, he's the doc. John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Do you know what my fortune was told to me? It was to avoid Monday Night Raw. And thank goodness I did, because I looked and, oh, man, cuz the World Heavyweight Champion comes down with COVID. And so what's the replacement? Is it a young up-and-comer? Is it a guy that you're going to push to the moon? Is it AJ Styles and Randy Orton reliving great memories from the past? Oh, no. No. They dragged out Triple H on Monday Night Raw. Thank God I avoided that altogether.
Oh,
why?
Wait, you didn't mind his giant hammer that was on fire?
Absolutely not.
You enjoy this?
I went to the competition, baby. I watched the college football playoff game, and I saw 0 seconds of Monday Night Raw. And when I saw that after the game, I said to myself, oh, my God, are you serious? Although Alexa Bliss did her thing, and we'll talk about it, you can't bring out Triple H. He's not a ratings draw. That was his first appearance in a match in 5 years. Are you kidding me?
I think it goes to show you, and this is the issue that I think Monday Night Raw is having. They have booked their roster so thin that when a guy like Drew McIntyre goes down because he's asymptomatic with COVID, it sidelines a ton of people because of the contact tracing. And then what happens is you have to have guys do double and triple duty. Matt Riddle on Monday Night Raw had 2 and 3 wrestling matches. You had a guy like Drew Gulak, who totally deserves better, going in against AJ Styles, and basically he was just a placeholder, which is unfortunate for Drew Gulak. Also, AJ Styles is fantastic, and Drew Gulak could wrestle his way out of a paper bag and make it look really, really good. But again, most of your crowd doesn't even realize who Drew Gulak is because of the way he's booked. And I think you're seeing all of this kind of unfold because creative does such a bad job putting these guys in places that when something crazy does happen, you got this deep roster. And mind you, WWE has a very, 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 very deep roster to pull from. They don't have anybody in place to pull from them and insert them into even a filler match. And there were a ton of odd booking decisions on the show. You brought up Triple H going up against Randy Orton. I mean, what? Triple H? You don't have anybody in the back who is, I don't know, under the age of 35 who could scanter down to the ring? You don't? I mean, you then have Ric Flair teaming with Lacey Evans to go against Charlotte? Like, this is like an old, tired trick. And you got guys like Keith Lee and Sheamus tag teaming and then fighting each other and hugging it out. Like, the way Monday Night Raw was put together, it was very, very confusing and it's very, very frustrating. And it shows you how bad of a job creative has done with booking their mid-card talent and booking guys to be on that level where they might not be at the very top end of the card, but they sure as hell aren't at the top end of the mid-card, and you can't just push them up there. You got to bring a guy out like Triple H. It's really, really unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is unfortunate when you look at what the capability is with WWE versus what they're actually doing. And maybe they recognized they were going to have a tough time going up against college football. but you had an opportunity to gain an audience, to gain attention. And I don't think they did enough with it to take advantage of an audience. The audience is mad, and I don't think they're going to come back.
And here's the thing. You had a college football national championship game that was basically over by the second half. You could have tapped into all of that unlocked potential, but you didn't. And you didn't put a show on that was good enough to really draw any viewers. It was one of those shows where I didn't really feel like I missed a whole ton. You know, I went back, I rewatched it, but I didn't really feel like I missed a whole ton. I think probably the most surprising thing coming out of this is the fact that Drew McIntyre does have COVID, and the fact that this is the first time. Do you realize this is the first time that WWE has even referenced anybody getting COVID? Referenced a wrestler dealing with this situation? You remember back in the early stages of the pandemic, they would have to shut the Performance Center down because they had so many people getting COVID and then passing it around to everybody else. They ended up enacting a fine if you weren't wearing a mask because it got so damn bad. But this is the first time on television anybody has referenced anybody having COVID. And I found that to probably be the most strange thing out of Monday Night Raw.
Man, it's just unfortunate because we like it. We're dedicated to the show, but it's just, not good enough. And you feel like you're wasting talent, too, because of the fact that you do have people. I mean, look, bottom line, you don't think enough of The Miz to put him in there with Randy Orton? That would have been 50 times better. Or for fun, the sacrifice. Just have Randy Orton say, come on, anybody in the back want to step up? It's your big night. And you have Morrison go out there. The dude was a main eventer. Wasn't he at Impact? And now you've relegated him to this character that's a side piece with The Miz. You could have just had Morrison throw out there and have a good match. Or a surprise person from SmackDown, Dolph Ziggler, anybody that can have a match. A classic wrestler as well. But you just missed an opportunity, and it's unfortunate because WWE has been hurting, and they're heading into the Royal Rumble kind of stale.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's probably the biggest problem is how stale they are. I mean, you can look at SmackDown and look at what took place on Friday night. You had the commissioner, the commissioner in power, but he's not really named the commissioner, Adam Pearce. He's going to be taking on Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble. Like, what are we actually talking about here? Again, this is where creative gets in the way and really holds back different guys. Instead, you're putting on a guy like Adam Pearce that nobody really knows about. Nobody really even understands what his role is. Every now and then he'll make matches and he'll suspend guys. He is the unofficial official commissioner, both Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown. Yet somehow this is the guy. This is the one guy that you've picked to go against your best champion, arguably, that you have in your company? I mean, what happened to Kevin Owens? What happened to anybody else that could challenge? Daniel Bryan, what is he doing? Is he laying on mothballs? Can somebody go shake him off and maybe dust the cobwebs? Just I don't know, get a guy roused to see if he can challenge Roman Reigns.
Maybe Daniel Bryan is still crying and weeping over the events of the country. He just can't get himself out of bed to become a main eventer again. Maybe he's just really upset and frustrated with life, or he just doesn't feel like stepping back into the big time, which is really crazy because the run that he had, it just seems like this run that he's on has just been so mediocre that when you see him again in the main event, it might be really a surprise. I just can't believe how far Daniel Bryan has fallen and his willingness to accept being a mid-carder again from the heights of where he was. It's kind of like The Rock. If he just would have came back and then been a mid-card guy, it makes no sense at all.
No, I agree with you 100%. I don't know what booking's doing. I don't know what the end-all game plan is. I mean, we've talked about this last week. Royal Rumble is one of the big four. This is arguably, you could make the case that this is one of the big two. This is your setup pay-per-view for WrestleMania. And I don't know about you. We're roughly, a week, maybe 2 weeks out from it. I'm not interested in it. I have no inklings about getting together, watching this. I've got no buddies who are really messaging me like, hey, what are we doing? Can we get together? Do you want to watch this? How do you want to do this? I've got nothing. Like, I don't care about this. And I think that kind of shows you where WWE has fallen with what they've done as far as booking. Now, I want to kind of bounce back to Monday Night Raw because you brought up Alexa Bliss in the very, very beginning of all of this. You like the fireball that she shot out. Apparently, she now has the ability to conjure up fire. It's like she's part of Captain Planet, and her magic power is fire, and her and the rest of the Planeteers are going to try to take down Randy Orton. So, I mean, explain to me what you're loving about this decision, because I thought it was kind of an odd direction to go in. I mean, I don't know, maybe Bray Wyatt has given her powers that were unbeknownst to all of us.
Well, it had to be some kind of retribution for all the action. I mean, Randy Orton got into fire, obviously set her, the person that she's with right now in terms of the Fiend. So it's kind of payback. Like, okay, you're going to light the Fiend on fire. So this is the direction we got to go in. So it's a continuation. It makes a little sense in that it involves fire. And so Randy Orton has been getting the best of both of them. So she wanted to let loose and to say, hey, I'm not somebody that can just be passed over, and you have to take me seriously. And I thought it was cool. And luckily, I mean, that's dangerous whenever you're messing with fire to throw that out there. But thank goodness that, so what we're hearing, it went off without a hitch. So thank goodness. But I was actually, but to be honest, most people, like, if you're going to have Triple H do a match, at least have him complete a match. I think most
he had about
people,
5 minutes, man. He didn't even get sweaty.
Exactly. Most people were like, well, we weren't really surprised, but I was kind of disappointed. I'm like, if it's the first time in 5 years, let's see something with it. But it didn't go down that way.
It was, to say the least. A weird week for both SmackDown and Monday Night Raw. Tuning in Wednesday, hoping NXT gave you something a little bit better, and I think they did. I thought the product was a little bit better from NXT, but that's really no surprise to us. Now, you are a brand new Impact fan, and I think this is a nice way to bridge NXT and Impact before we get into AEW. Now, MSK, a brand new tag team competing in the Dusty Cup Classic. I was interested. I was like, who is this new tag team? They silhouetted the images of these guys. Nobody had any idea who they were. And then when they get announced for their match, it's the Rascals. It's the former Rascals in Impact. I don't know if you popped a little bit hard for this or not. I did. I was really interested. I thought it was a good match. I think this is a good young tag team. It's going to be interesting to see how they kind of acclimate themselves to NXT. I thought it was kind of weird because they did just sign their contracts not too long ago, maybe about a month, maybe 2 months ago. But for these guys to get put into a situation so quickly where they are on TV, normally with NXT, guys will kind of come in, and unless you're a huge star, you're going to kind of have to learn how to run the ropes, because WWE uses different ropes than just about everybody else. Everybody else uses a twine twisted rope, an actual rope, whereas WWE uses cables. So they usually force you to run the ropes. You got to be able to show that you can navigate the ring. Coming from Impact, I'm not sure if the dimensions of the ring are a little bit different or not, but overall I thought it was a good match. I thought this was a nice way to introduce these guys, and I was surprised at how they were introduced.
Absolutely. And Vic Joseph, with the subtle comment, I don't know if you heard it and paid attention to it, he said, "Oh, these rascals are flying around." Mm-hmm. And it was really good. I caught it, and I did pop. I was like, oh, good for them. Yeah. I think they're going to have a nice place. And my note said here, they're a perfect fit for NXT. Good for them. A nice graduation for them into the big time. And the NXT system is perfect for this new group. And I was very, very impressed. MSK, formerly the Rascals, will do great in NXT.
I'll have to agree with you 110%. Now, we did open NXT with Finn Balor. You had Pete Dunne come down and challenge him, along with Orny and Loken, and they started to kind of take some aggression out on Finn Balor when Undisputed Era came out to make the save. Later on in the evening, we had Undisputed Era, we had Adam Cole, and we had Roderick Strong competing in the Dusty Classic with Kyle O'Reilly on the sideline. Now, Bobby Fish still out with a torn tricep, but you ended up having Pete Dunne and Orny Loken and Danny Burch come down, and they ended up tussling with Kyle O'Reilly a little bit. Finn Balor came down to try to even it. So it appears, and you had the whole crowd going too sweet, because you have Bullet Club members here with Finn Balor, the originator of the Bullet Club, as well as Adam Cole, one of the final leaders of the Bullet Club, together. And I guess this leads me to this. Do we get a Finn Balor Undisputed Era join up where they combine forces to take these guys on? Because I'm going to tell you this. I'm into it, man. If we get it, I'm into it. Finn Balor came out, he got a rough promo on Kyle O'Reilly, basically telling him that he's not good enough. He got knocked back down and put in his place. Kyle O'Reilly's the guy who came out to save him. And I love it. Then Kyle O'Reilly's getting beat up, and Kyle O'Reilly's trying to sell this thing with his jaw. and his mouth gets busted open, and Finn Balor's the guy to come out and save him. I'm loving it. I think it's great. I want to see Finn Balor join Undisputed Era.
Do you see any potential swerve coming out of this potential angle? I think you're going to see it, but do you see Finn Balor potentially turning, or a member of the Undisputed Era doing something herky-jerky in this situation? Because it lends itself to question marks like why? Why would they do this? What's the end game in this situation? And it kind of lends to future storytelling in NXT because they do a good job of it. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure where this is going to go, and what do you think is the best outcome if they do? Should they extend it out and let it be, friendly for a while, or should this spawn into maybe a potential feud with some of the members?
Well, before we had Bobby Fish going down with his torn tricep, we were supposed to have Kyle O'Reilly, and we're supposed to have Adam Cole turning face. And we were supposed to have Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong becoming hardcore heels. I'm not sure where we go. I'm not sure what happens. Maybe you have Adam Cole break away from Undisputed Era and you have Finn Balor come over and he's now the new leader of Undisputed Era. I mean, I could see something like that happening. I don't know where we go with this, but what I do know is I'm along for the ride and I enjoy it. I was wondering if you were kind of in the same boat, or if you've noticed the same things.
Yes, I've noticed it, absolutely. And I think it's a good mix because it's intriguing and interesting, and it lends to a lot of different things happening. So good on NXT for building up some intrigue, a show that potentially has struggled because of the fact the big stars have left. They've done a good job of creating interesting storylines that I think people can gravitate towards. And it's cool to see, the likes of Adam Cole, Roderick Strong. I'd like to see them take the next step and to kind of really remain consistent and do their thing in NXT and have good stories and good wrestling matches.
Now, why don't you give us your Impact recap of the week here? What did you like? What did you hate about Impact this week?
Obviously, main event stuff was awesome. It would hit the spot again. And I think that the addition of the Good Brothers has just been awesome. In the main event, you had Rich Swann taking on Carl Anderson, with Swann going over. And backstage, you had Gallows and Omega attacking Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley. And until Swann and Anderson joined in, I thought the match was really good, early back and forth action. And it was really good to see Rich Swann and Carl Anderson hold their own. And it's really great because, with Impact and with the addition of Kenny Omega, it's something that you really do want to see. And another match, though, I want to give credit to Moose, who defeated Palmer via referee stoppage. It was a really dominating performance by Moose, and he took down Palmer and hit him with a bunch of elbow strikes, and the referee had to stop it. And that's how you want to look. That's how you want to portray Moose, as this unstoppable force. Some of the things I didn't like, I wasn't a fan of the Tenille Dashwood Rosemary match. It just kind of looked overbooked, and it just didn't click. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, they didn't have the chemistry. Rosemary ended up defeating Dashwood, and it just didn't, for the women, when you have the likes of Valkyrie and Kimberly, you got to kind of step it up a little bit. And their match, the other women's match, Kimberly taking on Taya Valkyrie, was really, really solid. It was a good performance with Lee defeating Valkyrie. The one thing, though, that I really, really noted as a negative, didn't really need to see Tommy Dreamer out there taking on Diener. And I know Tommy Dreamer has a strong influence. I know that he's a guy with a lot of experience and a lot of backstage knowledge, can be the producer, can do a lot of things, but there wasn't a lot to it. It was kind of a match that was there, and it took place, and Diener defeated Dreamer via disqualification. So again, that first hour was okay with the women's match. Second hour was way, way better. Obviously, the addition of Kenny Omega makes it intriguing because you always wonder what's going to happen, what are you going to do? Impact is moving along great at the top, trying to evolve the women slowly, which they're doing a good job of. But unfortunately, with the likes of, RVD, Tommy Dreamer, Rhino, they still kind of feature older guys that you don't really have to care about. And it's unfortunate, but eventually speaking, I have to give Impact credit. They're taking advantage of the working relationship with Impact, and they got a lot of young talent with the likes of Eric Young, Diener. You got some people that you could potentially shine the light on going forward, and Moose, and hopefully when EC3 comes back, you're going to have yourself a roster that's going to be well-rounded. But it was a good show, B+ all the way, and something that you should pick into if you didn't get a chance to see it.
Very nice. It seems like Impact, since their partnership with AEW, is really stepping their game up, especially like you said, in that second hour. Second hour has been pretty solid for a long time, and now it just seems to be getting better. Now, AEW, just mentioned them. I'm not sure if you noticed it or not, but it sure felt like they broke out a bit of the tired bits, especially with they had to have different pull-aparts, and you had to bring all the wrestlers from the back to help get involved. We had 2 of these on this show, and I was just kind of over it after the first one. You had Cody Rhodes appearing on Britt Baker's new show, and they ended up having this weird pull-apart, and all the female wrestlers got involved. Later on in the night, you had Kenny Omega and you had Jon Moxley kind of going at it, and then you had Lucha Brothers come out when they were taking on the Good Brothers, and you had a massive pull-apart here. I don't enjoy the pull-apart is basically what I'm getting to here, and I felt like AEW really sprinkled it in heavy this week.
Yeah, I didn't get that too. I was like, what's going on here in the situation with AEW? It's like, that's the thing you choose to kind of recreate, is to have all these wrestlers come out there and do their thing. I just felt like you could have wrote it a lot better. Maybe a situation in which it's, sometimes maybe in the decision-making process, the producers and writers just have a lot of ideas, and you just sometimes have to simplify and just say, okay, this is how we do it. They're so mad and angry that we just got to pull them apart. But you and I think when you watch wrestling for years and years, it doesn't do nothing. It's like, the pull apart doesn't do anything. It didn't add to anything. It didn't take anything away. It's, you know why? Because we know it's scripted. These guys are going to fight. What's the purpose of keeping each other away? Let them fight.
Let them go.
Let them go. And what we like is, okay, this week it's Moxley getting over, and then the next week it's that person. The pull apart is like, okay, especially when they do the pull apart, and then the guy runs to the other guy, and you're like, okay, yeah, let's just move on from this. And exactly right. I thought that it wasn't the best writing performance from AEW this week.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it at all. Now, I did think what they did with the Kenny Omega match was actually really, really good. We did have a 6-man tag match, and instead of the Young Bucks coming down to form what was being deemed the Elite, as you remember, if you watched anything on YouTube, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks are the Elite. They ended up doing a quick swerve where they subbed in the Good Brothers as the Elite. Young Bucks didn't like this at all and were a little bit thrown off. I thought that was really nice storytelling you had there. In the end, you had Kenny Omega, you had the Good Brothers getting a big win. They looked powerful. That was when Jon Moxley ended up coming out. But what did you make of the Young Bucks getting swerved here for the Good Brothers?
What's not to love? I'm a big fan of the Good Brothers. Mm-hmm. I think they hold their own, and for whatever reason, they have the look of an AEW wrestler, don't they? I feel like they belong. But the problem is, there's an issue. The Impact World Championships tag team titles kind of look like they're from Halloween, and it doesn't kind of suit big time wrestling. Mm-hmm. I don't like it. I don't think it doesn't play off well on AEW television. For some reason, it looks better and it's highlighted differently on Impact Wrestling. But when they show up, when there's more space, they're coming in through the entryway there, it kind of has a look of like a peanut, like minuscule belt. They got to make it bigger and flashier. But other than that, small little nugget there, I thought that, the Good Brothers being involved and showing up on AEW is amazing. I think they belong. They got the look, and they're given opportunities to get their stuff over. And that's all you can ask for, is to be able to get your stuff over.
Yeah, no, I thought it was good. I thought it was a nice utilization of a couple of guys who, if you're just an AEW fan and you don't get to watch any Impact, you're getting to see some different wrestlers. I thought this is a good utilization of a partnership here. And I think it tells a really nice story for next week. We're going to see what's going to happen with the Elite now. Now, the one thing I don't want this to be an AEW bash session, right? Because we kind of came out a little bit strong to open up the segment talking AEW. But I do want to give AEW a ton of credit because I think they do something better than just about anybody else in the wrestling business. And that something is long-term storytelling. I didn't realize it until the other night when I'm watching AEW. and one of the announcers, it might have been Excalibur, might have been Tony Schiavone, somebody referenced the fact that Taz had been going after Darby Allin for over 7 months. This thing with Darby Allin and Team Taz has been going on for months and months and months. I just didn't realize how long it's been. And to give you a timeline, it's been 7 months since Taz had been trying to coach and counsel and take Darby Allin underneath his wing, only to be shunned, which is why he has so much heat with Darby Allin. Like, if you forgot why, they just did a great job of dropping a little nugget to remind you. And that helps spill into this match where you had the bigger, stronger, much more powerful Brian Cage taking on Darby Allin, who was just getting abused in this match. To only have Sting come out a little bit later on and prevent any interference from anybody on the outside of the ring. I thought this was a great demonstration of their long-term storytelling. 7 months in the making, you're getting this build for whatever's going to come next. And I think it's fantastic. But it's not just with this main event match. You're getting inklings to long-term storytelling here with what we just talked about with Kenny Omega and the Elite. You're getting long-term storytelling with what's going on with the Inner Circle and how they're now breaking up into little tag teams within the Inner Circle. It's really great storytelling where this was a unit, and then all of a sudden they insert MJF, who was going after this unit for so long, trying to become a part of it, but not really wanting to be a part of it, and then becoming a part of it, and now you're kind of seeing it get sectioned off and paired off, and it almost feels like at any moment, Inner Circle could just break apart, but I don't think that's what's going to end up happening. It's great nuanced storytelling from them. It's fantastic. You also have everything going on with Pac and Eddie Kingston, and wrapped up in all of that, you've got Lance Archer and Pac having their own storyline going. You've got multiple story arcs going on in these different matches and in these different storylines. I think it's really, really a kudos and a fantastic job that they do. We can't even get week-to-week good storylines from a company like WWE that has a ton more wrestlers and a much, much bigger creative staff. Instead, you have AEW giving you well-thought-out, well-nuanced, fantastic, gripping storylines. And just when you start to get maybe a little bit bored with it, or you're just like, hey, how did we even get here? They will drop a little nugget in there to be like, oh, yeah, that's how we got there. And again, I didn't even really realize it until I'm watching this match and they referenced it. And I'm like, this is the job of the announcer. The job of the announcer is not to get involved and not to take away from the match, but they're there to add to the match and add to the wrestlers and add to the storyline that's going on. And I just thought they did a fantastic job. I'm not sure if you noticed that.
Yeah, I thought Brian Cage held his own, played the part of the big bad dude, and I almost thought potentially that the TNT title could change hands. It was done that well. And I thought it was a great story all the way around, great main event. And always when you get a chance to see Sting saving the day, it's really good. Sting and, Darby Allin, really interesting potential long-term partnership because of their story, of their gimmicks and things like that. So you're absolutely spot on for the thinking there in terms of at least when they hit, AEW does a good job of getting you invested in storylines and getting you to think at a higher level of how they could, maneuver these characters and what they could do. And to give Darby Allin credit, give himself, giving him a title and putting him in a position to wrestle a big dude and to come away with the opportunity there to still retain. I thought AEW ended the show pretty well.
Yeah, I thought they did a really, really good job to kind of put a bow on what was, and I didn't even realize that it was the second night of their New Year's bash, and I thought they did a really good job to really put a nice bow on everything that we had for the last 2 weeks, really the last 3 weeks, going back to the Brody Lee special. So I thought it was a really nice way to kind of top everything off. There's something else that I didn't even mention. You have the Dark Order going after Adam Hangman Page, who Hangman Page is going to make an announcement whether he's going to join the Dark Order or not next week. And that's something that's been unfolding for a couple of months in and of itself. And Hangman Page may become the new leader of the Dark Order. So, I mean, again, well-nuanced storytelling. I thought it was a fantastic show. I thought they did a really nice job. besides all of the pull aparts, which were totally unnecessary. Also, you get to see Tony Khan's weird little self. He was on screen. That was cool. He's strange looking.
Yeah, he definitely is. Scrawny guy. You don't figure that guy is being ultra rich. Ultra rich guy that runs the Jaguars and a soccer team in England. No, he's a scrawny guy. Kind of like that Joey Styles kind of figure. That would be scrawny. That probably wouldn't even break a table if he got thrown through it. Scrawny, dorky guy. But that's funny that he grew up to be a young wrestling fan, and then he decided that, hey, why not just start a company? And he grew one so far within a year that has been ultra successful. And they're putting on good shows, and I think that the special shows that they're putting on are really good. And you're seeing a nice, healthy blend of veterans and young cats. And hey, and also give a shout out to Miro. I think that he captured Kip Sabian was, I think, real interesting in that matchup as well. He's doing his thing too, kind of buried a little bit, but I think his stock will rise in the stock watch. His stock will definitely rise in his story in the second half of 2021. I absolutely feel that way for Miro, right? He's got a presence.
Yeah.
For whatever it is, he's just got that presence that everybody wants to gravitate towards. All right, cuz, hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list this week?
So last week, one of the wrestling organizations that we don't talk about nearly enough, in my estimation, ROH announced a new ranking system for their 5 men's championships, which include their World Championship, their Pure Championship, TV Championship, Tag Team Championships, and their 6-man tag champions. There's also a women's title, but that's never been crowned due to the coronavirus pandemic. It canceled the tournament that they had planned. Now, ROH has released 2 sets of inaugural rankings during the latest edition of the ROH Week by Week. The wrestlers will only be ranked in one singles division at a time, but they're allowed to be ranked simultaneously as part of the tag teams or the 6-man squads. Now, the ROH Board of Directors placed wrestlers in specific singles divisions. If a wrestler wants to switch divisions, they must then submit a request to the board for evaluation and approval. Ranking criteria includes wins and losses, caliber of wins and losses, strength of opponents, resume, style, and influence from the fans. Any wrestler in the top 3 is eligible to challenge for the respective title at the discretion of the board. I absolutely love that. I think it's fantastic. I think it's well thought of. This is something that is similar to what AEW does, but again, I think this is a little bit more deeper, and I think it's a little bit better thought out. Now, per H. Jenkins of Ringside News, Kofi Kingston has confirmed confirmed an injury during an Instagram chat. It's being reported that Kofi Kingston suffered a broken jaw. Kingston indicated that he suffered the injury at the hands of the Hurt Business, which then means it may have happened on the December 28th episode of Monday Night Raw, which is when Kingston, Woods, Riddle, and Jeff Hardy lost an 8-man tag match against the Hurt Business. This might also explain the pairing of Sheamus and Keith Lee as they're trying to fill out their tag team sides. You also had those 2 guys wrestle each other later on in the evening. Again, WWE and their creative not doing a great job. Now, Booker T recently invited fellow WWE Hall of Famer Stone Cold Steve Austin onto his Hall of Fame podcast, where the pair spoke about their feud and their infamous supermarket brawl that took place in 2001. During the podcast episode, Steve Austin revealed that he legitimately tried to knock Booker T out after being hit with a stiff punch from the former WCW World Heavyweight Champion. He said, "Booker hauled off and hit me with a big right hand of his, and I mean, he knocked the trash out of me. And boy, I normally, very, very forgiving when guys start throwing potatoes, but he lit me up so hard. Instant rage came across me, and I sent a receipt like ASAP. Microprocessors, here it comes, and I threw it with everything I had. The problem is, this arm doesn't straighten out all the way, and he was just back far enough that I couldn't connect with him, but I was trying to knock his ass out." I think that's a funny story because that was a pretty famous feud between the two. And I think if you go back and you watch it, you can see the exact moment he gets punched, and then the moment he tries to lay Booker T out. It's really, really interesting. Now, WWE stars like Lana and Mandy Rose were recently listed on Love UX's list of their top 100 highest earning celebrities on Instagram. Now, Lana came in at 83, while Mandy Rose took the final spot of the list at 100. The publication listed both of their earnings, with Lana pulling in over $600,000 and Mandy Rose earning approximately $490,000. Now the issue is WWE has banned all third-party platforms, which is now preventing the two from earning that money. Again, their actual contracts that they have with WWE aren't anywhere close to what they could be earning on these third-party platforms, which is a monster issue. Speculation is Matt Riddle, who was offered a massive contract by WWE, was then offered another massive contract by WWE. He has not signed either one of those contracts. His contract is set to expire in August, and this might explain why he's been getting fed to the Hurt Business, at least recently. So watch out for Matt Riddle. You could see Matt Riddle ending up in AEW, and I think he'd probably be much happier. And finally, Wednesday, January 27th, before AEW Dynamite, the first ever AEW Dynamite Award Show will take place. This is where fans get to choose their favorite wrestlers and moments from the past year. Now, Shaq will be a presenting star among other people. The show will start at 7 p.m., so don't forget to tune into this again on January 27th before AEW's Dynamite, and you can go and vote right there at AEW.com. And that's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, make sure you type in Detroit Sports Podcast. And when you hit that subscribe button, our daily content finds you super quick, where we talk about Michigan athletics, all things Detroit sports. We got a fantasy football show. We got a great show, DocNJock, every single Thursday, the practice squad on Friday. Noah does a great job with open mic night, and our friends at the Fan Report just do an unbelievable job. So make sure you tune into our content. Been going strong since 2013. Love talking professional wrestling every single Friday. Raw, probably the show that is the least appealing, but try to at least check in because it's Royal Rumble season and something major is bound to happen. A return, maybe a signing, a flip, something. WWE can't go into 2021 this lackadaisical. I don't believe it. Something has to pop up. Even if it's a fake rumor, something has to turn around to make the Royal Rumble a little more appealing. Thanks, cuz. I look forward to the next week's broadcast where we break down all things in the world of professional wrestling on the next episode of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.